The air in the courtroom was thick and heavy, laden with unspoken accusations and simmering resentments. It felt like a stage, and we, the unwilling actors, were forced to play out our private tragedy under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Across the aisle, she sat, a picture of composed indifference. Her posture was flawless, her dark hair pulled back into a sleek, severe bun that emphasized the sharp angles of her face. But it was her eyes that held my gaze, those cold, calculating eyes that had once been my solace. Now, they were filled with a smug certainty that ignited my fury. We had been married for 12 years, a lifetime, or so I had believed. Ashley and I were, at least on the surface, the perfect couple. We had a comfortable home, successful careers, and a social life brimming with shared laughter and inside jokes. Together, we had built a life, brick by careful brick, or so I thought. But, like a house constructed on a foundation of lies, our life began to crumble. It started subtly. Her schedule shifted, and her touch grew distant. I dismissed these changes, chalking them up to stress or a new routine. How naive I was, so painfully naive. Then came the whispered phone calls, the hushed conversations in the other room, and the late nights at the office that had nothing to do with work. The first real clue came in the form of a misplaced receipt, a booking for a hotel room. But the reservation wasn't for us. It was for her and another man. That was my first taste of betrayal, a bitter, metallic tang that lingered on my tongue and refused to leave. At first, it was a paper cut, a small wound compared to the sword that would soon follow. When I confronted her, the scene burned itself into my memory. The kitchen, our kitchen, filled with the familiar smells of our life, suddenly seemed warped and wrong. Her eyes, when I presented the evidence, flickered not with shame, but with something closer to irritation. She didn't deny it, not at first. Instead, she tried to justify it. Her twisted logic painted her as the victim and me as the cause of her infidelity. She even claimed she deserved it. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, to rage, to hurl every piece of our shared life back in her face. But I didn't. I just stood there, absorbing it all. I let the silence speak volumes. In that moment, I decided I would not give her the satisfaction of a dramatic outburst. I would play it cool, calculated, and smart. This was no longer just about a broken marriage. It was about accountability, about making her understand the magnitude of her deception. And I knew exactly how to do it. I began keeping records, dates, times, details, every shred of evidence I could find. Meticulously, I documented and organized it all, building a case piece by piece. It became a wall of proof designed to dismantle her facade of innocence. The divorce proceedings were long and acrimonious, a grueling dance of legal arguments and accusations. I could feel the hatred radiating from her like heat from an open flame. But I was ready, sitting there in the courtroom, with the weight of everything pressing down on me. I felt a deep, unshakable resolve. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And there she was, sitting across from me with that smug, confident expression, a silent declaration of victory. She believed she had won. She thought her lies and calculated manipulations would shield her. She believed herself untouchable. The judge, a composed woman with a calm yet observant demeanor, called for the evidence to be presented. My lawyer, a sharp and seasoned professional, began methodically laying out the case. One by one, the pieces were revealed. The hotel receipts, the credit card statements, the photographs, all the evidence I had painstakingly collected. Ashley's face remained composed, her smirk unyielding. But as I watched her, a cold satisfaction grew within me. I could feel it, a storm gathering, ready to shatter her carefully constructed world. Then came the crucial piece of evidence, the one that would unravel everything she had so meticulously hidden, a series of text messages. These weren't just casual exchanges. They were detailed, undeniable conversations spanning months. The messages revealed not only her affair, but also the cold, calculating way she had manipulated everyone involved, including her lover. He, too, was married. The text exposed a tangled web of lies so intricate that even the most skilled liar couldn't escape its grasp. The judge began reading the transcripts aloud. Each word rang out like a hammer blow against Ashley's wall of defense. With every sentence, her smirk faltered. Her composure cracked. Panic flashed in her eyes, which now darted around the room, searching for an escape that didn't exist. The smugness faded from her face, replaced by sheer, unadulterated terror. And then, there it was, the moment I had been waiting for. A text message to her lover surfaced, explicitly stating her plan to financially bleed me dry in the divorce, using the affair as leverage. She had called me a fool. This was her undoing, the final confirmation of her cold-hearted motives, her utter lack of remorse, and her complete absence of a moral compass. That single statement stripped bare her character, exposing the true depths of her deception. Her face turned a ghastly white. Her hands trembled as she leaned in, frantically whispering to her lawyer. A moment ago, the courtroom had been buzzing with anticipation. Now, it was cloaked in heavy silence. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her mind as her reality fractured under the crushing weight of the truth. The judge, her expression grave, broke the silence with a voice that carried controlled power, reverberating throughout the room. This evidence is damning, Ms. Walker. It paints a very disturbing picture, not only of infidelity, but of premeditated malice and an egregious abuse of trust. The gavel struck the wooden block with a sharp, resounding crack, a sound that seemed to echo endlessly in Ashley's ears, marking the demise of her carefully constructed world. The rush of satisfaction surged through me, but it was tinged with sadness. This was no victory, not really. It was closure, the final chapter in a painful saga. The divorce settlement heavily favored me, the financial burden of her deception now resting squarely on her shoulders. The judgment was more than a legal win. It was a validation of the truth, a resounding declaration that her lies would not go unpunished. Her world had crumbled, not in a dramatic explosion, but in a slow, agonizing collapse. Her lawyer, who had entered the proceedings brimming with confidence, now looked utterly defeated. Ashley sat pale and shaken, her eyes fixed on the table, unable to meet mine. The look of arrogance that once defined her was gone, replaced by fear and complete desolation. For the first time, I saw the panic in her expression, the realization that she had gone too far. Her carefully laid plans had backfired miserably, and the full weight of her actions was now crushing her. Her silence spoke louder than any scream. She had underestimated me. She had mistaken my quiet nature for weakness, my patience for blind trust. But the truth is, I was stronger than I ever thought possible. In the end, it was that strength, coupled with the undeniable truth, that had prevailed. As I walked out of the courtroom that day, a profound sense of relief washed over me. The weight that had pressed down on me for so long had finally lifted. I turned back once to glance at Ashley. She sat there, defeated, the smug confidence gone, replaced by fear and regret. The once sharp angles of her face were softened by despair. She now understood the full consequences of her choices. Stepping out into the sunlight, I looked up at the sky. It was a clear day, and for the first time in what felt like years, I could breathe freely. I could move on, leaving the wreckage of our broken marriage behind me. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was an ending. And sometimes, that's all that matters.